So, assuming everything goes according to plan, the House gets in line, passes the Senate deal, and then the White House signs it, then the government will reopen. And we'll have to wonder, what exactly did forcing it to shut down for 2 weeks, more than 2 weeks, really accomplish? Because ultimately, by voting on a relatively clean spending bill and debt limit increase, Speaker Boehner is doing what Democrats have been asking him to do all along, since even before the shutdown. We could have had this deal 2 weeks ago, but instead we went through furloughing hundreds of thousands of workers first, denying cancer trials to sick kids, and distributing food around the country without proper inspections. Only now, after all that, are we right back to where we started, a similar deal to reopen the government and avoid a default. So to people watching Washington from afar, this looks absolutely insane. And here's the thing, it might actually be insane. Joining me now is Dr. Douglas Fields, Ph.D., a neuroscientist and author of the book, The Other Brain. Dr. Fields, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So let's try and get away from the politics for a second and the economics for a second and try and put our finger on what might be driving this from a neurological standpoint. What's your take on the psychology on Capitol Hill right now, and what sort of fueled this dysfunction that we've seen over the last few weeks on this issue neurologically?
Well, I think what we're seeing play out on the national stage is herding behavior, human herding behavior, which is very important, unconscious behavior that allows us to form complex societies. And I think that can provide some perspective on what's going on.
So when you say herding behavior, that means people acting in group and losing their kind of own agency to make right and wrong decisions, sort of, right?
Exactly. Group behavior is adopting or modeling the behavior of the group that you're in. And an individual will develop emotions and feelings, thoughts and behavior according to the group around them. And one of the important things about herding behavior that psychologists know is that it reduces the threshold for deviant behavior, for conducting yourself in ways that would be otherwise considered cruel and you would never do as an individual.
So herding reduces the likelihood of that, you're saying?
Exactly.
But in this case, it seems to be promoting that sort of behavior because, I mean, you could say that the actions that have been coming out of Congress over the last few weeks have been extremely harmful to the country.
That's correct. It reduces the threshold for participating in those. So you're exactly right. No congressman would stand in front of a mother taking her sick child with cancer, stand in front of that woman and prevent her from taking her child into the NIH for treatment. On an individual level, that would be cruel. No member of Congress would prevent their neighbor from going to work in the morning and earning a living and contributing to society in their own way. That would also be unacceptable. And many of these things that we see going on and we accept only because of a psychosis of herding behavior.
So that could explain away why, Republicans en masse might have gotten together to kind of force this shutdown, or to exact these demands which have led to this shutdown. How do you explain behavior of individuals leading this herd, though, like maybe Senator Ted Cruz or certain members of the House? Individually, they led a movement, they staked, they put their self on the line to do all these things that denied NIH cancer treatments or led to hundreds of thousands of people being furloughed. I mean, can we write their decisions off based on this herd mentality as well?
Well, herding behavior describes the behavior where people adopt behaviors and attitudes and beliefs according to the individuals around them, whether you like an iPhone or a Gucci bag, depends. It's not a rational decision. And it's not a behavior that's dictated. So while we have leaders in groups, they're not really dictating necessarily the behaviors and thoughts of the other members of their herd. They are participating. So it's a natural process. It's essential for humans to form social structures, to coalesce around others in their group. So there are leaders, but they're not dictating behavior of all the individuals in their group. But once you become part of this group, you adopt unconsciously those same beliefs and behaviors.
So is Ted Cruz a psychopath?
This is not psychopathic behavior in the sense that it's normal behavior. There would be no human society if we didn't have this propensity and neural circuits, which are unique to humans, that allow us to mimic and adopt other people's behaviors. But what is in a sense, psychotic about it is that an individual would not behave this way towards other individuals except for the anonymity and the reduced compassion and apathy that develops in herds. And we see this in mob violence and fads.
Why has this herd mentality been so much more prevalent, it seems, in the last 2.5 years in Congress than we've seen before? I mean, the debt limit had been raised, so. The government has shut down in the past, not for this long, and it was usually over spending issues, not over extra issues like Obamacare. But we've seen this sort of every few months, dysfunction. What do you make for this uptick in the recent years?
Well, I've wondered about that myself, and I don't have the answer to that. But I think the flip side of that is that the solution from a neuroscientific point of view is to realize that these tendencies to form herds and take actions that are really destructive and cruel are a result of this deeply ingrained behavior in human beings, and that the way out of this is to perceive that we're all part of a larger group. We're all the same group of Americans, and that dividing into these factions and becoming aligned with a faction within a group leads to this kind of problem of herd behavior.
A lot of people are blaming Washington, D.C., the actual location, Washington, D.C., for creating this sort of empathy gap between what's actually the problems Americans are facing day to day and the problems that Congress is focused on. Is there something in the air in Washington, D.C. that inhibits our empathy receptors?
No, it's just that this is where it happens. This is where the groups coalesce and they have these interactions. But I think that what will happen is that either members of Congress will realize that we are all part of a bigger group and have to come together, or the larger group that is America, the citizens, are going to remind them through their votes that this is not an acceptable behavior to sabotage the normal operation of government. I think by and large people don't accept that.
Is there something naturally psychopathic about choosing to be a politician, choosing to go and appeal to people for, ask for votes all the time? I mean, there's been studies, 1% of the population is believed to be psychopathic, something like 4% in corporate America, 15% in prisons. What do you think the rate is on Congress?
No, I think that members of Congress are all well-meaning, most of them quite devoted individuals. I don't, by and large, I don't.
Most of them? Most of them?
Yes.
Not all of them? Name some names.
It certainly requires a unique set of skills and a lot of arrogance or fortitude that a lot of people don't have.
Dr. Douglas Fields, neuroscientist and author of The Other Brain. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.